Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Last First Date Radio, featuring interviews with experts in dating, relating, and mating in midlife. And now, here's your host, Sandy Weiner.
Hello and happy Valentine's Day to all of you lovers out there, whether you're in a relationship or not. This is the day of love. It's pretty universal. Some people are hating today. Some people are loving it. But I say that whether you're single or in a romantic relationship, this is a day to give love and to receive love. And I am excited to introduce you today to John VESPASIAN. He is an author, and he's going to be speaking about what ancient history can teach us about relationships. And so as a dating coach, this is what I do. I talk about relationships. I help you date with dignity and self-respect and honor and have the lasting, healthy relationship that you want. So this is a little bit of a different show today. But whether it's ancient history or modern day times, it's really important to really listen to the dating advice that is authentic and real, and that's what I'm all about here at Last First Date Radio. So if you are listening to dating advice that tells you you need to be thinner, smarter, or wittier to find your right fit partner, stop listening to those people, because you really need to be more you. You need to be more authentically you and not change into something that you're not. And I love helping thousands of women own their value and become more vulnerable and create deeper and more meaningful connections with amazing men who love them for who they are, not what they're not. Every week I bring you a tip on how to be a woman of value, and today's tip is love your body. And I know there are some men who listen to this show, so please don't think that this is just for women. We all need to love our bodies more, love our body as it is, appreciate the body that you have. I can't tell you how many people are unhappy with the body that they have. There's so much body shame. And I do a lot of work around helping people love their bodies more. So one little tip, something you can do, is to look in the mirror every day, and you can look without any clothes on and just look at your beautiful naked body and find the parts of you that you love the most already and give them some love, and then find the parts that you're not as happy with and give a little extra love to those parts. You might want to buy one of those rub-on tattoos and put them on your body, because that can also help. So if you want to become a woman of value who attracts her best partner, please go to my website, lastfirstdate.com, and sign up for my free guide, which will help you know the top 10 reasons why men disappear and how you can finally attract and keep the love you deserve. Also, please join my private Facebook group if you're not there already. It's called Your Last First Date. It's for single women over 40. The conversation is positive, supportive, and fabulous. And now for our guest today. His name is John VESPASIAN. He is the author of 8 books about rational living, including When Everything Fails, Try This, Rationality Is the Way to Happiness, The Philosophy of Builders, How to Create a Great Future with the Pieces from Your Past, The 10 Principles of Rational Living, and many more. And today we are going to be hearing episode 244, What Ancient History Can Teach Us About Relationships. Fabulous topic. Thanks for being here, John.
Hi, Sandy. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. So if you can, as you can tell, John has an accent. He's from Europe, and he lives in the Netherlands right now, so he's calling in from far away. So let's talk about this. We've never had a guest on who talked about what ancient history could teach us about relationships. So can you give us some examples about what ancient history can teach us?
Well, ancient history can teach us all things about everything, because I mean, human personality and human nature has not changed fundamentally. We have smartphones, we have television, we have YouTube, and we have many gadgets in many different areas. But what people do in relationships and how they find each other has not changed at all. And in one of my books, I really addressed the ancient book, which was for ancient Rome, from Ovid, who wrote the first book about the relationships, The Art of Love. And he really analyzed in great detail the question of dating and the process of dating and how to find a romantic partner. And this, we are talking now 20 centuries ago. And Ovid was giving advice to his friends. He was a very sophisticated Roman writer. He wrote poetry. He was a lawyer, and he really observed the life in ancient Rome in great detail. How people have relationships, how they met, how they developed. He wrote this manual, this book, Art of Love, which is still very nice to read after 20 centuries. And he came to this conclusion that most people fail to connect, to have a good relationship, because they give up too easily. He observed many times that people got depressed, they got anxious. Sometimes they went through periods of extreme anxiety because they could not connect, or they got a divorce, or they got estranged from their spouse. He gave them a very, very rational advice. And this is something that I really underline in my books, because I try to propose patterns of behavior that are relatively easy to implement. And what Ovid told his readers 20 centuries ago was that love and success, romantic success, is pretty much a matter of numbers. And he told them, look, if you fail in one relationship or you fail in 20 relationships, you should not give up, because the supply and demand is really wide. It's just that we get focused on our narrow environment. We get focused on our personal characteristics, and sometimes we don't look beyond the immediate. And what Ovid told his friends and his readers is that, look, you have to go where there are more opportunities. You have to go and to meet new people. You have to continue to try and to establish acquaintances until you find someone where you can connect to. And if you try, you increase exponentially your possibilities, and you should not just get depressed and get stressed and anxious just because you fail in the short term.
I love that. This is such important advice, and I see so many people giving up and thinking in terms of scarcity. There's not enough. And if you look at statistics, there are so many singles in the world, and now with online dating, we have access to people we never had access to. So he was a smart man. How do you spell his name?
Ovid. Ovid. The Latin name was. The Latin name was Ovidius. His book, he wrote actually two books, Art of Love, and the other book was The Cure for Love, which was about romantic disappointments. But the main principle is that you have to find a way to concentrate your efforts where you can actually succeed. And obviously, if you live in the countryside in the middle of nowhere, it's very difficult to find a romantic partner because there are simply not enough people. It's like trying to find a job in an area where there are no factories. I mean, it's really, really difficult. So if you follow the advice of Ovid in the 21st century, you will do very well, because in the end, you might fail in the short term, but in the long term, success is almost guaranteed.
Mm-hmm. So that's very interesting. I also really believe that we are hardwired for attraction from the beginning of time, even though, like you say, so many things have changed in terms of technology and in terms of how we connect. We still basically are attracted in the same ways. Is there anything in ancient history that talks about attraction like that?
Yes, many things that there are many stories about attraction and love in ancient Greece and ancient Rome. But one of the principles I want to transmit to your audience is that one thing that we absolutely learn from ancient Greece in all in relationships and also in the professional area, in any human interaction, is that you should not try to change people. And there are very compelling stories about ancient Greece. There's a story about Cassandra, who was the mistress of Apollo. And at a certain point, Cassandra behaved badly, and Apollo threw a curse on her, and she was condemned by Apollo to tell the truth. Nobody would believe her. So Cassandra would always tell the truth to everybody, and nobody would believe her. And this in ancient Greece, this myth of Cassandra comes all the time when people try to change other people. And they say, look, I am with Cassandra, I'm telling you the truth, but you're not going to change. You have to listen to me. You have to listen to me. And in relationships, people make this mistake all the time. They tell the truth. Sometimes they believe that the person who they love is going to change. And history shows in many, many examples that it's almost impossible. Human personality is very stable. We tend to have our tastes, and we have to have our distastes. And if you fall in love, or you want to establish a relationship with someone who has very, very different characteristics and very different tastes from yours, most of the time it's going to be a waste of time to try to change that person, even if you try to correct his bad habits or her bad habits. And what Cassandra and the many characters in ancient Greece, like Cassandra, show is that the Greeks already knew that even if you tell the truth, even if you're absolutely right, it's very, very difficult to convince other people to change. And you should always keep in mind this when you have romantic interest, in order not to fool yourself, which is a cause of misery, continuous misery for years and years if you just continue to do it.
Yep. I think it's much more common, it seems, with women trying to change men. There's an old saying that when people get married, women get married and hope their husbands will change, and men get married and hope their wives will never change, something like that. I think that, often people who are younger and more immature go in thinking that their partner will change. And, one thing I've learned after my divorce and doing this work is that what you see is what you get. People can change behaviors if they really want to, but they're not going to change the essence of who they are.
Yeah, this is something so extraordinary that when it happens, actually comes in the newspapers. When you hear someone who all his life has been a crook, and then he becomes a very honest and benevolent person, I mean, this can happen, and we have seen some examples in history, but it's very, very unlikely. Another examples I want to mention from ancient Greece about relationships is the models of relationships. And in ancient Greece, even you see, for instance, in the 8th century before Christ, when Homer was writing the Iliad and the Odyssey, which were books, basically the stories about the Greeks, the Greek war against Troy, you have this figure of this character of Penelope, who was the wife of Odysseus, and you have the model of successful relationship that the ancient Greeks always aspire to. And you have this loyal woman who is waiting for his husband who has been going to war 10 years ago, and then he tries to go back, and she's waiting, and she's trying to remain loyal to him. And this is something that the ancient Greeks really took to heart very, very strongly. I mean, they wanted their relationships to be modeled after the relationship between Odysseus and Penelope. And you see that the whole stories of ancient Greek mythology, they come in contrast to the ideal of Odysseus and Penelope. You have all these short-term relationships between Greek personalities and their mistresses, and they all end more or less in disaster. And they always come to the model of Odysseus and Penelope, because everybody wants to have this long-term relationship that can endure all kind of problems. And in the case of Penelope, I mean, basically she was waiting back for her husband to return for 13 years, and she has to deal with all kind of problems. But in the end, he came back, and they became very happy. And this is an example, a model that you have to keep in mind, because if you don't have a clear model of what you want, then you are very, very apt, very, very prone to be distracted.
So you're saying that based on the model of Odysseus and Penelope, that that you should have an idea of what you want in the end in order to be happy?
Yes, you should have an idea. Yeah, you should ask yourself the question that what's going to happen if I really need help? What's going to happen if I have to go away for a few months because I need to get a job and then I have to be separated? Are you really dating the kind of person who's going to remain loyal to you in difficult times? This is a very, I would say, annoying question, especially when you are dating at the beginning. But you have to ask yourself the question, because if you get in a long-term relationship and you're going to have children and you're going to have investments, you're going to buy a house, eventually you can make yourself very vulnerable. And if you know from the start that you are dating the kind of person who is basically a flake and is not going to withstand any problem, and is very nice during the summer, but there is always a winter, you have to keep in mind the model of relationship you want to have, because otherwise you will get distracted by completely unimportant characteristics, and you might be blinded by beauty or by someone who has some skill that you value very much, but you have to go to the essentials. And questions like honesty and loyalty, they are fundamental, because without those, even 25 centuries ago, people were 100% certain that it was impossible to have a good long-term relationship.
Well, people died a lot younger then, too. So a long-term relationship didn't last as long as it does today.
Yes, and another example we have from ancient Greece about relationship is the story of Medea. They have made many different versions in Hollywood about Medea, but basically it's a question of revenge and high emotionality. Because Medea, in the end, when her husband gets involved with another woman, in the end she becomes completely out of control. She doesn't realize her options, and in the end he becomes a murderer, and he kills her children, and then he tries to kill the other woman. And what this play, because it's an ancient theater play from Euripides, who was a playwright on the 5th century before Christ. What this play tries to convey is that you should try to stay away from people who are very much emotionally unstable, because this is very difficult to correct. It's very difficult to cure. If you have someone who becomes extremely depressed today, and tomorrow very happy, and then becomes the next day becomes very aggressive, you should watch out, because in 25 centuries ago, the Greeks already knew that this is very dangerous, that you can have a short-term relationship maybe for a few weeks, but in the long term it's very dangerous, because people who are emotionally unstable, or I would say to the extreme mentally unstable, it is very difficult to deal with them, and it's almost impossible to have a good relationship.
Mm-hmm. These are good lessons. So we're learning that it's difficult to convince somebody to change, and honesty and loyalty are fundamental through thick and thin, and stay away from emotionally unstable people. Those are some very fundamental lessons that I think will help you have a very healthy relationship. What about resilience? What role does resilience play in successful relationships in history?
Resilience is absolutely critical, because even if you are very successful and wealthy and handsome, eventually you will get into problems, because that's life. Eventually you will have to go through bad times, and it's very important that you adopt a philosophy of life, not only in the area of relationship, but a philosophy that is going to enable you to withstand adversity. You will find in relationships good times and bad times. You will find it also financially, and you will find it also in your health. And the ancient Greeks were very wise in this respect, because they developed a philosophy to promote a balanced personality and to promote emotional balance. And what they did, and basically based on the philosophy of Zeno, who was a philosopher in the 4th century before Christ, Zeno developed a very sophisticated philosophy for reducing stress and for increasing resilience. And what Zeno recommended is that in order to be able to remain calm in the face of adversity, what you have to do is to have a clear idea of what you want to do, what you want to get, whether it's to find a romantic partner, to recover your health, to establish yourself in business. You have a clear idea of what you want to do in the long term, but you have to have patience with your mistakes, with other people's mistakes. But the important aspect of what Zeno recommended is that you have to start every day taking steps toward your goals. If you want to establish a romantic relationship or you want to have a better life, you have to make a plan, a long-term plan, to understand that sometimes it's going to take months, sometimes it's going to take years to recover your health or to find the person you want. But if you do every day a little bit, and you go on your way and say, okay, every day I'm going to meet two new people, and I'm going to go out, and I'm going to do these activities, and I'm going to try to reach my goal, this has a huge psychological advantage because it creates peace of mind, it creates self-confidence, and it puts you in a huge advantage when you're dating because you are not anxious about the result because you know that little by little you are going to get to your goal. So what the ancient Greeks already knew is that if you want to have a peace of mind and to increase your resilience, what you have to do is to establish a long-term plan, to implement it little by little without anxiety, without stress, without depression, just to go step by step, and eventually you will reach the goal.
Mm-hmm. Pretty smart. I agree totally, and this is some of what I teach in my dating coaching. So that's great. So let's talk about the difference between short-term and long-term relationships in history.
Yes, this is something that people do not really do not find nice to talk about because everybody wants to have, in principle, a perfect relationship for the long term. But history shows that sometimes the environment and the possibilities are not there. And the ancient Greeks, in this respect, they actually established clear differences between the models of relationships. And sometimes they recognize that if you are going to live in an area only for a few years, and you don't have the purpose of establishing yourself, in those respects, it's a bit of a swindle when you go to someone and say, "Oh, yes, I want to have a long-term relationship, and I'm going to stay here," and you know perfectly well that this is not going to be the case. So one thing that you have to realize is that if you really want a long-term relationship, you have to avoid getting into situations where this is impossible. And this is impossible sometimes because people don't have the people you are dating don't have the long-term perspective to start a family, or they don't want to have a long-term career, or they are very unstable. And you find in the writings of Plato, I mean, we're talking now 25 centuries ago, a warning against this conflict of vision, because if you want to do something which is complex and long-term, like having, for instance, a successful family, you have to avoid systematically any distractions that are going to take you in the other direction. And in the romantic arena, it is very important to avoid the kind of people and the kind of situations that might be very pleasurable in the short term, but basically it's going to be a waste of time if what you are looking is a long-term relationship. And this is very, very hard to do, because if you are put in a situation where you can really enjoy yourself and say, okay, I'm going to fool around for a few weeks and a few months, you are wasting your time. And the ancient Greeks already knew this 25 centuries ago, still very difficult to accept, because we all tend to fall easily in these traps because they are so pleasurable, but we don't have time to waste because life is very short. Huh?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are short-sighted. They're very impulsive. They like what they see. They don't think long-term. Or like you said before, they get distracted by beauty or money or something that makes them want to be with the person, and they don't think about all the important things. So it's, when you date with, with forethought, and you really think through what do you want, what do you need, you're going to make less of these mistakes. But it's interesting that the ancient Greeks established that as well. So this is all new to me. I'm learning a lot today. So thank you, John. So let's talk more generally about self-confidence and examples of how ancient history or philosophy can help you with self-confidence.
Well, self-confidence is a huge subject, and I would like to tell you a story from my books, a very romantic story, which is one of my favorites. And it's about a Belgian painter. Probably you never heard his name. His name was Delvaux. And he had a fascinating life and a very interesting romantic story because Delvaux, he was born in a I would say wealthy family in Belgium, and his father wanted absolutely that Delvaux became a lawyer. So he sent him to university, and Delvaux in the end started, but he didn't want to become a lawyer. Then he tried to be an architect. It didn't work, and eventually he decided to be a painter. And now comes the fascinating part of the story, because he went to this Academy of Arts in Brussels, in Belgium, and there he met a woman. Her name was Tam, and they fell in love. And then his parents, who were actually paying for Delvaux's studies, they told him, look, you cannot really marry this woman because she's poor, she will ruin your life, and you have to find someone better. So Delvaux, who didn't have any money and didn't have any success as a painter, he listened to his parents, and then he broke the relationship. So a couple of years later, he married a wealthy woman. He was very unsuccessful and very unhappy. For almost 15 years, he was with this woman. They traveled. They didn't have children, but he was extremely unhappy. And eventually, he found his style as a painter. He went to Italy. He discovered the Impressionists. He came back to Belgium, and he became extremely successful as a painter. But still, he wasn't happy with his relationship. And then comes the story, because in the end, he was so fed up that he used to go to the beach and rented a house there for painting. And once, when he was with his wife, he went to buy cigarettes. So he went to buy cigarettes, and there in the tobacco shop, he met again this woman that he had met 20 years ago. And within 5 minutes, they fell in love again, and then he divorced, and he married her, this Tam, and they became very, very, very happy, and they lived together for another 30 years. In the end, Delvaux died very, very old. He was 97, and he was still a great artist. And the story is fascinating because it shows you that when you really find what you want to do, when you really find the kind of person that is really a good fit for you, you should go for it. And you should not listen to anybody. You should not think about money. You should not think about difficulties, because it's a key decision in life. And I always find fascinating the story of Delvaux. I like his paintings very much. And you can see a few of Delvaux paintings in New York, in the Metropolitan Museum. He became a very, very wealthy painter in the end. But he made the right choice. And when he met this woman after 20 years, he made the right choice to divorce his wife and to find happiness. And he regretted very much that he didn't marry her when he was in his 20s, but he didn't miss the opportunity. So it's very important to listen to your heart and to listen to what you actually want, so that you can recognize it when you see it.
Good advice, and a good thing to end on this Valentine's Day, John. So thank you so much for all this wonderful knowledge about ancient history and the lessons we can learn. Let everybody know how they can find your books.
Very easy to find. If you just type my name in Google, John Vespasian, you will find the books. You will find my blog with hundreds of free articles. You will find my free newsletter. So just type John Vespasian on Google. You will find it immediately.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you, everybody, for listening, and happy Valentine's Day, and I hope you all go on your last first date very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.